So welcome to the next part of my Android development crash course with Kotlin and Jetpack. Today I'm going to be showing you the navigation stuff, including the navigation SafeArgs that's part of Android Jetpack. Okay, so in order to start off with getting the navigation stuff integrated into our project, we need to add the dependencies. And you would have seen I added these in one of the previous crash course videos, but let's just go over them quickly for completeness. So inside of our app build.gradle, we require these two dependencies, the navigation fragment KTX and navigation UI KTX, and both of them are using this version navigation variable, which I've defined in my project level build.gradle. I'll show you in a second. But inside of this one as well, what I'm going to include is the application of this plugin, Android X navigation.SafeArgs. So what that allows us to do is to pass arguments between fragments as we transition to them across various actions, and we'll see that in this video as well. Then inside of our project level build.gradle, I've got the navigation version. At the time of doing this, it was 1.0.0 was the latest. And then inside of dependencies as well, I've specified on for the class path the navigation SafeArgs Gradle plugin, which uses the same version navigation variable. And that's it for including the navigation dependencies. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the navigation design view. So I've gone to my navigation.xml, clicked on the design tab, and I'm adding a new destination. You see, I clicked on the little plus, and I've selected my water level list fragment, which is the second fragment I've created. You can see it's added a little rectangle for that now, and you can kind of move it all around this design view and put it wherever you want. It makes no difference at all, really, other than like from a visual perspective, but the user isn't affected by anything you're seeing here. It's just a design view. And now you can see I've got two fragments, my title and my water level list. And what I'm going to be doing here now is creating an action between the two. So it's like a transition. So I've clicked on that little circle and I've pulled the line across. It's made an arrow. That shows me that there is now a transition or an action available between the title fragment and this water level list. And you could choose animations. I'm going to just use the default ones. These animations are for entering and exiting and popping off and on of the backstack. So this is like when you enter is when you transition to it, exits when you go from it, pop enter and pop exit is when you use like your back buttons, and you can choose all different kinds of animations and create your own. I'll show you how to a bit later. You can also add arguments to pass between these things as well, which I'll show you now as well. Now this is what the XML looks like. So you can see that we've got a fragment down at the bottom here for our new water level list fragment. We already had the title fragment one above, and that's also specifies our start destination at the top there. And now we've created an action, and it's put the action tag within the title fragment tag, since that is the source, whereas the water level list fragment is the destination. And that action, as you can see how it's named very appropriately, it's telling you it goes from title fragment to water level fragment. Okay, so back in the design view, let's have a quick look at arguments. So I want to be able to pass something through, a value, a long value. I want to be able to pass the water level ID through from the title fragment to the water level list. So for now, what I've basically got is on the title fragment, when we click on something, we want to take that ID of the water level we were showing on the title fragment and just pass it through to this other fragment just to display it. It's nothing useful really at this point. So you see I added the argument through the design view, and it's created in the XML here. The argument's called water level ID, and the type is a long. Okay, so let's have a look at how to actually set up the navigation. So to kind of like enable it, to switch it on, however you want to see it. So inside of your main activity, what you're going to do is, well, I've created a private internal method called setup navigation. Let's have a look at that. Now we have a thing called a nav controller, which, as it kind of the name implies, it controls navigation. And you want to find the nav controller. There's a method, as long as you're extending the Android X app compat activity, you get a lot of this stuff kind of for free. So find nav controller, and you want to pass through the ID of your main nav host fragment. So if we have a look at that, it's actually inside of activity main XML. Let's just have a look here. just get it there. Yeah, activity main XML. So the XML file associated with your main activity. I've defined a fragment over there called main nav host fragment, and you can see you just set it up with Android X navigation fragment nav host fragment, and it's pretty much as simple as that. I think I showed this in a previous video, and you just specify the nav graph as the XML file that you're using for navigation. So if you have a look inside my res navigation, I have a navigation.xml. So this one over here, which you've seen before, and we'll go through that a little bit more shortly. But yeah, so that XML file is what you point to over here. Okay, that's your navigation graph for the entire application. Okay, so then back in main activity KT, also using a support action bar and set up action bar with nav controllers. Another thing you call, I've got a draw layout that I'm associating with it. So again, this is inside activity main. It's kind of my outermost layout within the layout tag. I've got my draw layout, and yeah, finally set up the left draw called the navigation view. So I'm not going to show you all of this stuff right now. This is kind of setting up some of the boilerplate for these things. I'll go through that in a future video with the different menus and things. What you need though is this nav controller.add on destination changed listener. Okay, so basically what this is doing is when your destination has changed, so in other words when you've like transitioned to view a new fragment. So these destinations, if you think of navigation graph, there's actions that take you from destination A to destination B. So the action will, once it's completed, will result in you being in now seeing the destination associated with that action. So destination B, for example, in that example. I suppose it's more like your origin A and destination B. It's probably a better way to put it. So what's happening here is this is effectively listening for destination changes, and then it's changing the title fragment. It's saying set display show title enabled false, and it's making the toolbar image view visible if this was the title fragment that we're dealing with, because that's when I want to just show a little picture. I don't actually want to show like the writing or the label of the fragment. So if we look at our navigation XML, that's what I'm talking about now. With each of these fragments we've defined, we've given a label. So for this one, the label is just welcome, and navigation XML. And for this second fragment, the water level list fragment, which is the new, very basic one that I've created just to show you the navigation transitioning, how it works. There's a water level list title, which just says water level list. Okay, and basically, in the case where I'm showing the title fragment, so this one, yeah, I don't actually want that label to be shown. I'm actually saying I rather want my image view, which is like my little vector graphics icon, to be shown. And in the case that we're looking at a different fragment, I do want the label to be shown. So that's what we're doing inside of main activity KT over here. So that's all I'm doing there, is just distinguishing between the two. This is not properly indented. Forgive me. Okay, so that's basically what we're doing there. Okay, so you don't have to have that, but if you want to implement that kind of thing, then that's a good idea to have it. And then I've also overridden a method called onSupportNavigateUp, which is just, you know, having the kind of the up button or the back button, making that work correctly. So you just find the nav controller again for the main nav host fragment, and you just call this method called navigateUp, and it's as simple as that. And that's all the navigation stuff that you need in your main activity to get it up and running. Okay, so the next thing to look at is the separate the different fragments that we've created. So let's just go back into navigation XML. So as you saw earlier, I've got two fragments that I'm transitioning between. I made a couple changes, like the label, for example, from earlier when I showed you this in the video. And now let's have a look at this fragment that we created, water level list fragment. Okay, so I'm not going to go through this in detail. It's just a very, very simple fragment, and I just wanted to show you how I'm accessing the arguments and that sort of thing. So again, back to navigation XML. Remember, we had an argument that's passed through as this action will cause this argument to pass through because we've associated this argument with the water level list fragment, and it's a water level ID argument. That's the name of it, and it happens to be a long. So if we go to our fragment, the way to access this is like this over here. So we've got args, water level list fragment args. That's an auto-generated class for you once you specify the stuff in the navigation XML. That will be created for you when you build, and you get it from the bundle arguments. And then you can just access it like args.waterlevelID, and in my case we've converted it to a string just to print it out to log it with Timber. But where I also use this is over here. When I actually create my ViewModel factory, I'm passing that through as one of the values. If we look at the factory, I'll just pass it through, and I pass it through into the ViewModel over here, and then on the initialization of this ViewModel, that's where I just set the value here. Okay, because I've got this water level ID over there, and this is just like a backed method in Kotlin. So what this is allowing me to do, and this kind of underscore in the front is a standard kind of approach for doing this. So I've created a private mutable LiveData because I don't actually want external classes to be able to modify this water level ID. So I've kept it private. It has to be passed through, and then I set it in the init as opposed to something accessing it directly and changing it. But I do want them to access the value, so not be able to mutate it, not be able to change it. So that's why you create this kind of backed getter. This is just this kind of standard way of doing this. So then this water level ID without the underscore in front of it can be accessed externally by like the water level list fragment. You can see that's what I'm doing here. ViewModel.waterlevelID.observe. So again, I'm effectively observing or kind of like listening for changes. And when there's a change to the water level ID, then there's a water level ID text view, which is defined on my fragment water level list XML file, so the layout file associated with this fragment. And I set the text on there to water level ID is, which is just water level ID is, and then this is how you can define like a parameter. So that's parameter 1. If there was a second one, you'd have the same thing but with a 2 in it and then a 3, and that's how you can have multiple parameters. Okay, so that's water level ID 1, and I pass through the water level ID string, which is just this thing that I observe changes for. Okay, so it's the actual it's a string because this water level ID over here is a LiveData wrapped around a string. The generic type is a string. Okay, and then that will pick up the change and it'll set it on the text view. If we look at if we look at fragment water level list.xml, you'll see that we have this water level ID text view defined on there. And it's simple as that. All we're going to do is we're going to transition from the one fragment to the other, pass through the ID as a parameter, and show that ID as part of this text. So it should say water level ID is, and I think like it should be 1 or something like that is the ID we're using. Okay, so yeah, we'll have a look at that now shortly. Thanks for watching this video. As always, I hope you enjoyed it, hope you learned something, and please watch the second part of this navigation stuff as well as all the other crash course videos, and subscribe to my channel if you want to.